Hey guys, what's going on? So I was kind of looking at the other video I made the other day of the HTML Java video, and I realized they were like the HTML JavaScript video, and it went like really long. So I wanted to kind of clean it up a little bit. Um, and make it really quick here so that my YouTube channel doesn't have a video that's like 3 hours long on there. I don't want that. So so basically what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go over, do a quick overview, and then we're going to just kind of go over what you got to do to set it up, which is really simple. It's 2 steps. Well, it's really just 1 step. But, and then we'll get started. And I'm just going to go through some really simple, like, quick talk discussion, and then we'll just do a really basic page with some text, and then a button, and then we'll change the color when you click the button. So, real quick, basically, HTML, for anyone that doesn't know, if they're watching this for the first time, is going to be a best way to describe it is it's just a bunch of directions that have information that your computer takes and in the form of web page and displays it. You'll have a bunch of different web browsers, things like Google Chrome, Internet Explorer, Firefox, Safari. All of those are web browsers, and the thing that you got to understand about HTML is the web browser is interpreting a file that has a bunch of instructions in it. So when you actually click on Google Chrome and open up Google Chrome, and which I'll go ahead and do here, you'll notice that it opens up and it's doing something. It opens up and runs something, or whatever, blah blah. This is actually running a program, and so you're actually loading a web page as soon as you open it. It's like the basic web page, starting web page or whatever that comes with Google Chrome. Every one of them has a different one. Internet Explorer, blah blah blah, and they're all jam packed with all their goodies and everything. So. Basically, you got to remember HTML is instructions that are being interpreted by the web browser, and the same thing goes for JavaScript. So again, just instructions that are interpreted by the browser, another running program. So think of it kind of like, you're feeding, feeding instructions to a running, machine. You're just kind of feeding something that knows how to, the browser knows how to read those instructions. It knows what all these little instructions, what I'll be talking about here in a second, it knows what all these predefined things are. And so, just to jump right into it, to get started, I recommend going a step farther. If you wanted to, you could actually just go new and then right click and go to text document and open the text document and save it as an HTML file. And that's great and wonderful, and it's very helpful having the ability to just write HTML and JavaScript in a text editor. You don't need any additional compiler. You don't need any crazy add-ons or built-in tools or anything like that. It's as simple as you can just use a text file. But to make it easier and to give yourself a little bit of a relief for typing strenuous amounts of repetitious keywords and form structures, I recommend a really nice program. It's download. You can download a trial version for free, and you can purchase a full version of it. It's called. Here, I'll get it for you. Oops. I keep doing that. I don't know why. For some reason, I go to the wrong. Sublime Text 3 is the version that you can download right now that they're kind of giving you out on the website. You just basically go to Google and type in Sublime Text, and it will take you to their website, and there's a button right in the middle. Download it, install it. Pretty sure that if you're trying to learn how to do HTML and JavaScript, you already know how to install a program, so I'm not going to waste time covering that right now. But I went ahead, and in the last one that I did, I actually went through and already prepared all this. But I'm not going to use this for the complete tutorial. I'm just going to use this initially to talk about something, and then we'll start over. So I'm going to highlight something, and you'll see there's what would be the less than or greater than symbol on either side of what's HTML in basic text. And what that is that's actually a tag. And so that's a key thing to understand with HTML specifically is the entirety of the instructions is based upon a tag-based structure and related tag-based attributes. So another thing I'll point out here is if you come down to this label, you'll notice that the label has this little green ID. Well, that is a part of this label. If you'll notice, it's in between these the open and closing character there. And what that says is that saying, okay, well this label, and these are attributes. There's a number of these. I won't go into all of them. We'll just use ID initially for what we're doing as well. And basically all that is that's just saying I have something that goes along with this. And with this, when I say with this, I'm talking about the area or the information that's included with the tag. So if you notice, there's an opening one here, label, and then something, something, and then slash label. And what that is it's an opening and it's a closing tag. So really simple. There's nothing hidden or crazy about it. When you go to use your web browser, the web browser knows what these little div and BR, what, by the way, stands for line break, meaning you want, I'll show you what that means here in a second. But, that's the entirety of the basics, I guess, of what HTML is based around. And so you have these tags, and these tags are how your web browser knows what to do and what to render. So that's HTML in like 5-6 minutes, something like that. So let's go ahead and create a quick new file here and save it as, we'll just call it a page, a HTML page, and then I'll save it as a HTML file, so .html, so I'll just save it. And then, if you've never used Sublime Text before, quick note: in order to make it so that you have this really nice highlighting, you'll notice how label and ID, how they're all different colors and stuff like that. It's called syntax highlighting. And if you want to make sure that's enabled, you go up to View, and you go to Syntax, and you go down to HTML, and you go Point, and you select that, and then from that on out, it will go ahead and why did that not save as HTML? Huh. Okay. What is this? Already an HTML? Well, it must be because I don't have anything typed or something like that. Oh, I bet I know. Anyways, so with Sublime Text, another reason why I recommend this. So because this is like the first time, hopefully some of you guys are doing this, and you're kind of like, okay, well, whatever, and you're just getting into it. It's really nice. You type the opening character for a tag, and you type H and hit enter, and it fills out the skeleton for a really like the most basic setup in the history of possibility that you could have for a web page. And so if you'll notice, it starts off at the top. It has exclamation point doc type HTML. That tells the browser, hey, this file is an HTML file. And then you'll notice there's an HTML tag, an opening one, and a closing HTML tag. That's just saying, hey, everything that is in between, after the opening tag and before the closing tag, everything that's in between there is going to be HTML. It's going to be HTML code. And then you have a head and then a body. The head, for right now, don't really worry about it if you're just getting into it. We'll use the header for loading modules, including external files, things like that. Later on, I'll do some videos talking about how to do all that stuff. So don't worry about that right now. None of that makes sense. Later on here in a couple weeks or a couple of days, I'll, as requests come in, I'll get stuff done. So more people want it, the more I'll do it. But yeah, so the title, it's as simple as whatever you type in here. This is a web page. You know what? I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna just put my page. It's my page. And so anything you type in that title is going to show up in this little tab up here. So if you have a tab open up in the top, normally it would show nothing, but the file name, if you don't have a title by default, if you do, that's what shows up there. So at least in Google Chrome, that's the behavior. I don't know about every other web browser. So we're going to move on to the body. So the body, basically, for simplistic purposes and the sake of this video, the body is where all of the information goes. And that's where all of it is included, and that's where, for the sake of this tutorial, we're going to put everything. So yeah, basically, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to show you something. We're just going to type some plain text. And so if you'll notice, when I type this, we're going to go ahead and open this. So right here, at this moment, after we save this, so save this officially, and I don't know why that's just being weird. don't like that. Anyways, so after you save this, and after we do this, we should be able to go and I just saved it to my desktop. Where's it at? There it is. HTML file. There we go. So if I double click on that, if it is the I'm gonna open Chrome because I already have Chrome open and tabbed out over there. So if it is, yep, there it goes. So if you'll notice my page up at the top right there, there's the title right there, and this is plain text, and there you go, right there. So the first thing I'm going to do, really simple. So I'm going to show you guys something. So if you'll notice, if I just type 2.this and I say, this is also plain text. And yes, we'll just go txt. If I go ahead and save that text and I reload it, oops, did not save. Save. Reload. There we go. Got an extra S in there somewhere. There we go. Control S. There we go. So if you notice, it says this is plain text. This is also plain text. You guys notice how it's all on the same line. So how you fix that is you think maybe, oh, I'll just go ahead and hit enter, and that'll solve all my problems. Well, unfortunately, as I'll show you here, that doesn't actually do anything. So I did actually save that there, and it'll indicate that to me by, if you notice the little dot up there, will go away, and then it might yell at you, just hit cancel, whatever. I just, keep using it, it'll never go away. Anyways, shout out to Sublime Text, they're awesome, I recommend buying it, I bought it. I love it. I just don't know where my key is. I'll buy another key if I have to because I like it that much. This is also plain text, so if you notice, blah, 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 we reloaded it. It's on the same line, so how do you fix that? And I told you I'd show you. Really simple. Opening, you go break. So that's a line break. We'll resave it, come back over here, reload it, and now it's on two different lines. So there you go. So that's something real quick. We'll go ahead and add another break in here. And try and keep this video short here. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to use your first actual tag to display text. So you can write just plain text, but that's not really like what you actually want to do all the time, because if you just type plain text, you're kind of limited in what you can do with it, and it kind of is like plain text. So in order to jazz things up a little bit, in HTML you have something called a label. And so basically a label, as you'll notice, this is just text in a label. I think it's label. It's label. So we'll save that and re-render it, and if you'll notice, hey, look at that, it looks the same. Okay, well, yeah, because it is just the same. But because labels suddenly give you this, what I like to think of as a point in the ocean of digital nothingness. Now the web browser and you and everything and the world around you can suddenly manipulate this text, and we can say, hey, you know what? I'm going to use the attributes of this label, and the label is a tag, and tags have attributes, something you need to memorize with HTML. Tag has attributes. Attributes are information that pertains to the tag that represents what you want that tag to consist of. Best way to think of it. So what I'm going to say is I want this tag's attribute, ID attribute, what I want the ID to be. We're going to call it LBL1. And so this is important. Why, you might ask? Well, because, I could, if I just wanted to, do something like this and just type label and then type, again, this is just text in a, label. and close E. And so if you just hit the first two characters there, it'll go ahead and take care of that for you. No problemo. Hey, little Spudster, how's it going? I'm just doing a quick overview. My HTML video I made the other day went like way too long, so I'm trying to shorten it up for throw up on the YouTube channel. But yeah, if you listen and pay attention, you should learn a little bit about HTML. But yeah, so these label tags are synonymous. You know, you can put as many of them as you want out there. So the problem is you want to have a way to differentiate between the multiple tags. And so how do you do that? Well, use the attribute, the ID attribute. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to say, ID equals, and this one I'm going to do LBL2. And then to show you another thing, another example of an attribute that pertains to a label. So our first label, LBL1, I'm going to use what's called the style attribute, and I'm going to change the color, the color of the text, and that's done by simply typing, color, semicolon, and then HTML, the language, has a bunch of preset verbal, like I could set using the red, green, blue spectrum and all that crazy stuff. You can set all that, or if you want, you can just type blue, or red, or green, or yellow, or, the base colors that most grade school children learn. So, yeah, and that's a basic way, that's called an inline style modification, if you will, and so that you can do this in a different way, and later on I'll go into how to do that. It's called CSS, Cascading Style Sheets. CSS, Cascading Style Sheets. Until it's getting late, I'm calling things the wrong thing. So anyways, yeah. So what's so great? All right, so we're going to go ahead and save this, come over here, and reload this, and hey, look at that. This is just text and label, and it's blue. What do you know? Again, this is just text and label, so if you notice, changing the IDs on them, it doesn't really do anything. I'm going to add another little page break in here so that the blah, 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 blah. They are on separate lines. So now if you notice, if I save it, save, there you go, it shows up on another line. Now, we're going to jump, make another quick jump. So, alright, well, we got a label. What else we got? Another tag we got. Well, they give us a bunch of them. There's a whole bunch of cool. Another one is buttons. So buttons, as you can probably imagine, click me. Okay, well, excuse me. Click me, save, add another little line break in here so that it shows up on a new line here. And what do you know? Little button. You click on it, but you notice, no matter how ferociously I click on that little bastard, it's not going to do anything, and it really doesn't care, because it is just a button, and yeah. So, again, as you probably, if you're intuitive and you're paying attention, might, or understanding as quickly as I'm going, what do you think you might do? Well, yeah, attribute. So what you can do is buttons, they have a bunch of built-in, what are called like action listeners, action execution. I think they're action listeners is the correct way or correct terminology for it. But if you want to think of it like there's a bunch of reactions that the browser knows to react to, like if you hover over, if you click on something, if your mouse is near the thing, and then in a certain area, you can have it. Excuse me, not near a thing, but if your mouse is near a certain area on the screen, you can have it pop up certain stuff, so on and so forth. There's a lot of things there. So the button has one that I'm going to use for an example because it's really straightforward, simple, and something you can follow. It's called on-click. Makes sense, right? On-click, when you click it, when you click me, I'm going to do something. And so here's where a lot of people get lost, and I apologize if I'm moving quickly and, you have difficulty understanding, but, I appreciate anybody that's hanging on and following along real quick while I blaze through this tutorial real quick to try and make a decent YouTube video out of it. So I'm going to talk about a little bit of JavaScript. And so JavaScript is where most people are like, right? You can kind of understand what's going on here. It's like, oh, okay. So I write something and I save it. I save what I write, and it's in a file, and I save a file, and I open a file in a web browser, and it does something. That's cool, right? Okay, great. Well, if that's all you wanted to do, your life would be kind of like plain Jane. It'd be like going to the grocery store and buying like generic vanilla wafer crackers for your entire life. You're like, there's so much good stuff out there that you could get into, but you're just like scared. And so I really try and force people that like want to learn how to do web pages, because they want to learn how to like code their own web page because they think it's neat. And I try and push them like right away off the edge into JavaScript because it really kind of like separates the men from the boys, if you will. And the reason why that is because with JavaScript, you suddenly go into a much more free programming world. You suddenly have a world of programming in the sense of variables and functions and function calls and a lot of things that require you to have some either previous knowledge of programming or require you to spend a little bit of time thinking about it, or in this case, watching a video and seeing, oh, holy shit, that's really stupid, simple, I see what's going on there. And so the goal of this part of the video here is to give a brief introduction to JavaScript and show you why JavaScript and HTML are kind of like a peanut butter and bread sandwich. It's a pretty good combo. Not quite everything. There's still a few pieces. You could have a little bit more on it, but it's a good combo, and it'll get you by. There's a lot of really good web pages out there that are really simple, really easy, and all they have are a little bit of styling, a lot of styling, and a little bit of JavaScript, and a little bit of HTML. Just a little bit of this, a little bit of that. But but they're pretty. So if you have this down, you can make a pretty basic, fairly functional, fairly generic web page. And a web page, when I say a web page, that, you could show like pictures and let people navigate around. So that's why I really try and emphasize, because this is what allows you to make a web page, is when you bring JavaScript in. So what is JavaScript? Okay, JavaScript. Well, the name, JavaScript. There's no link, or it doesn't mean there's. Basically, it's a word somebody came up with and gave this set of words. All this is a set of words. So you have this language, and it has a bunch of keywords, and you'll see what I mean by that. And you'll notice that basically it's like written. It's like speaking. It's like the words you use to speak with, and then somebody just put them in an order and called it a programming language. And it's like, oh. So again, back in here. So remember, I was talking about this button has this reaction, this thing that it'll do when you click So when I'm in this browser and I click me, right? I click on click me. I know that the browser understands that that button is being clicked. And I now, in my HTML document, I can harness that ability, that browser ability, and the built-in attribute of the button is what I'm referring to here, and I can click on the button and have it do something. So what we're going to do is we're going to have it do something by using JavaScript. And how do we do that? Well, really kind of easy. So we're going to do something, and hang with me here. We're going to type in what's called a callback function or a function call, whatever you want, however you want to refer to it. I'm going to call this a function call because that's what I want to call it, and so that's what we're going to go with. And shoot me if it's not correct. So oh well, whatever. I'm wrong. Big whoop. So we're going to call it my function. Pretty straightforward. And if you notice, I put these little parentheses behind it, open and closing parentheses behind it, and that's to indicate to the onClick that it's looking for a function. And I close it with a semicolon. You don't have to put the semicolon in there, but I do it because I like to do it because it, then it tells me that's a function. I know that's a function. So, well, you're thinking, okay, well, I typed that. Well, what does that go to? Logically, it's got to go to something, right? Well, it does, and where it does, it goes to is you do something called. There's a few ways you can do this. For this example, we're going to include JavaScript right. We're going to embed JavaScript right into our HTML document. You think embed, that's a big word, right? Well, no, not really. It's as simple as you think, embed. So we're going to put some JavaScript code right next to our HTML code right in the same document, just like you're laying there with your wife. So how do you do that? Well, you type SCRIPT. If you notice, this is why I love Sublime. Shout out to Sublime Text. If you don't use this program, go out, download it, check it out. It's great for using for coding purposes, web development, doing all sorts of coding stuff. I love it. It's a great program. Really has great syntax completion, good syntax highlighting, well maintained, few bugs, and has a lot of advanced features for all you high geekers out there. So, so basically, if you notice, it says script, and it has like script open and script close. So everything in between here, just like everything in between the body and everything in between the HTML, everything in between this script is script. Okay, and what type of script is that? Well, attribute time, and so you see type green. Well, that tells you it's an attribute. Thank you, Sublime Text. And you say, okay, well, what type is it? It's text. And what type of text is it? It's JavaScript. So now your HTML is going to get read and loaded when you load, in this case, when I hit refresh in the web browser, and it's going to read this and say, oh, okay, everything in here is JavaScript. So, now, this is where it gets fun. And this is really cool. And you'll see why. Okay. So, I have my button, right? And I told you that this button is going to call a function. It's going to, when it clicks, it's going to do something. And how it's going to do that is it's going to initiate or call a function every time that button's clicked, because HTML is going to tell it to. And the web browser does that automatically, and you don't have to worry about that. But what you do have to worry about is you got to tell it what to do when that click happens. And so, R-Star teleported in. Oh, that's funny. That's great. Hey, R-Star, teleporting in for a second. What you do here, oh yeah, by the way, if you're watching this video on my YouTube channel and you haven't already, go over and check out my Twitch channel, like, subscribe, follow, all that crap and stuff and jazz. That's where this is coming from. I do a lot of live feeds, a lot of fun. And I always welcome. Love more internet friends. It's always fun having more people interacting and stuff. So yeah, basically, yeah. So you have script type, and everything in here is going to be JavaScript. And so what am I going to do? My function, when I click, it needs to call something, and that function needs to do something. And how's that function? You're wondering how this is all linked. So this is how it goes. Button has an attribute on click, and you provide it with a function name. So this function name, you can name it whatever you want. If I wanted to, I could name it my function 1, I could name it my function uno, I could name it blah, I could name it ta, foo, bar, whatever you want. So in this case, I named it my function. And then where that actually is referring to is down here. So inside these script tags, you now write your function. And for anybody who doesn't know what a function is, basically it's like it's a pre-made set of instructions that think when you press your blender and it has like low, medium, and high speed. Well, those are like functions of the blender. Well, in JavaScript, that's kind of what you're doing. You're like writing internet functions, right? So yeah, instead of low, medium, high, in this case, it's my function. So how do you do that? Well, yeah, pretty simple. You type function, my function. You type right, open and closing parentheses, and here's the key, open and closing brackets. So the opening and closing brackets in this case are important because then it says, okay, everything in between these little brackets, and you notice this is kind of a trend with programming. Everything is kind of like grouped into these little areas where you have like opening and closing areas. And so, again, the parentheses are to indicate it's a function. For now, we're just going to go with that's all you need. So in a second, I'll talk about it. Later on, you can add little things. Like if I wanted to, I could have like B, B, C, C, whatever. I could have whatever. It doesn't matter. And what those are values or arguments that can be passed in. So if I had information that I wanted to pass into this is kind of going deep, but I could do it that way. So that's what that is. Later on, I'll talk about that. I'll do a tutorial about that. But for now, we aren't doing anything. All we're doing is we're just calling this function when it clicks. So when you click a button, this little bit of information, this information in between these two little brackets called my function is going to run. So what is it going to run? Well, now, if we go ahead and save this, you'll notice if I reload it and hit click me, nothing's happening, although it's calling the function, nothing's actually happening. The reason why is we haven't told it to do anything. So here's the like, I guess, the point where you'll see how JavaScript is so important and how it's so helpful and useful with web pages, and why when JavaScript was developed, it was revolutionary, and it brought web development, web design to a whole new level of interactivity, and I'll show you why. So we're going to start off here, and we're going to say document, and then we're going to put a period, and what that's going to do is this is going to say, I want to look at this document. And when I say this document, I'm talking about this HTML document. This code right here, this garbage you just wrote is the document. So you say document, I want to refer to this, and then you say get, and then you go element, and make sure you capitalize the E, element, capitalize the B, and capitalize the ID, I on ID. And what you're doing is you're saying get element by ID. Well, what does that do? If you're keen and you're following along, you might think, hey, well, I got this now. That attribute he was talking about earlier. Now, Now, is that what the ID is? Is that what he's talking about? Well, sure as shit, that's exactly what I'm talking about. So that's what's damn neat about HTML is I can say, hey, I'm going to name this label something, and then JavaScript can come back and say, hey, I'm going to get that label. I'm going to do, I want to fuck with that label. I'm going to mess with that label. And how do you do that? Well, it's as easy as giving it its name. And you say, hey, here's that bitch's name. Go mess with him. Go mess him up. He he's messing with my girl. Right? Go take care of him. And then again, a period, because now, what this is saying is now we have used this. This is, again, if you'll notice, it had initially, if I deleted this, if I got rid of this label part, and just had get element ID, you notice how that looks the same as my function? Because it is. That's what it is it's a function that it's included in. So JavaScript, just like HTML, has these predefined things that are already included in them. And some of those things are included in libraries, and just like libraries have lots of books, in this case, programming libraries have lots of instructions. And these instructions are, lots of functions and such of that sort. So this get element by ID is actually a function, and so what you're doing is, remember I talked about that argument thing before just a second ago where I said you could kind of include something up here and pass an argument into it? Well, that's what we're doing here. We're passing an argument into this get element by ID, and that argument is, you guessed it, the name of the function. And that's how HTML is able to be manipulated or to be accessed on the fly using JavaScript. And that's the reason why JavaScript is so useful and so important in the internet and DOM world, is because it allows you to manipulate DOM objects, as they call them, or in this case, what I'm talking about is things like the label that we created here with the ID of label LBL2. So now the last thing we can do here is we'll have some fun with it, and just like I did up here, and I said style is equal to color blue, I can do a similar thing in a sense where I can modify that attribute of that label by using a set of keywords. And in this case, I say again style, and then I do .color, and then I say is equal to parentheses, and I put it in parentheses to indicate that that's the argument that I want to put in for color, so that it would be placed like, this is placed here. Well, that's the same sense as what we're doing here. See how color's there, blue's there. In this case, it's just not highlighted because it's being referenced a different way. But I'm going to change it to red. And so the last thing you got to notice, and you got to remember this, this will nail you. If you do a lot of JavaScript programming, if you do a lot of programming in C, in Java, which, by the way, Java and JavaScript are two different things. I'll have a discussion about that sometime. Semicolons. When you're done with an instruction in JavaScript, if you notice, right here, this is actual code. This is a function name, so you don't a function declaration, basically right here. So you don't need to use a semicolon. You might see some people put them down here, but I think that's actually incorrect, and it might yell at you if you do that. But if you notice, here's a line, and if I just the way to think of it is, if you see a bunch of text and it just kind of stops, it might need a semicolon. So semicolons mess with a lot of people, and they have difficulty with it. But as you write more code, you realize why. So here's another example. So if I wanted to create a variable in JavaScript, which is just a place to hold information, I do, we'll just do var tar. I'd put a semicolon after it there, and this is just saying that now this bit of information, this line of code, is now finished. So, and I'm not going to do anything with that, so I'm just going to delete it out. So we're going to go ahead and save this, and hopefully if everything works, we'll go ahead and refresh this, and when I click it, fingers crossed, hey, look at that, it changed it to red. Now, you know, you might be thinking like, wow, for 20, that was like really friggin' amazing. You just changed the color of text on a screen. Bravo, okay, I'm leaving now. Well, rightfully so, and, I guess whatever. Thanks for coming by and listening to me bullshit. But you gotta understand, when JavaScript first came out, and I remember this too. I remember when, because I grew up right into the infancies. My first computer was back in the 7.5 inch floppy load. Oregon Trail, Yukon Trail days. Back in the day, and so I grew up. And I had like a Mac, an old Macintosh, whatever, IBM something or another. It was a Macintosh. Yeah, Macintosh. And then I got an Acer, and, we had a 13.3 or 14.4 or whatever, and then the 18K modem, and then the 26K and 56K. And I remember going up all through that stuff. And so, I remember when this first came, and suddenly you could do stuff and change things on the screen and have things happen, and it was just revolutionary. So yeah, that's I hope everybody who was following along, kind of watching here, could understand that and found it useful. A lot of people kind of struggle with JavaScript and kind of understanding how it fits in with HTML, and they kind of get lost when they're trying to understand like what it's used for and how it actually works. And so that's kind of the goal of this video, is to really help kind of clarify that in a way, and make sure that you can understand when you're trying to approach this, how kind of these puzzle pieces fit together. So hopefully this helps, step you up through the initial steps of getting started. This is like basic 101, like the most basic. So the next video I'm going to do, I'll go a little bit further into talking about passing function parameters, dealing with function stuff, and setting up some more intricate JavaScript stuff that's doing some more and I might keep I think I'm going to keep CSS separate for now. So I'll go a little bit more into JavaScript for my next tutorial, and then the next one I do after that, the next tech talk I do after that, I'll go into CSS in depth and kind of show how simply adding a few little lines of code here and there can really make the visual impact of a website much more appealing. So, anybody who was hanging out with me today, following along, thanks a lot for coming out. As always, I appreciate everybody who joined me. Thanks again for watching. Subscribe, follow, BS, all that crap. Check out my YouTube channel. Check out my Twitch stream, www.twitch.tv/Fur20. And yeah, hopefully this helps you out. Feel free to send me any constructive criticism, comments, and requests. And so, as always, thank you, and peace out. Have a good one. I will see you guys later.